Hello Constellation, welcome to Starchaeology Tarot. My name is Desi. My intention with this reading is to empower you with gentle, supportive guidance and to use ASMR to help rewire your brain to this state of empowerment. When your brain is in an alpha or theta state, you're more connected to your subconscious, your intuition, and your truth. This is by far the best time to receive empowering messages through tarot. Before we begin, I want to take a moment to thank you for being an intentional member of the cluster here at Starchaeology Tarot. I'm beyond grateful for you, and I ask the same way that you are hoping to receive blessings, that you start by giving blessings and consider liking and subscribing to this channel. Give the abundance you hope to receive. You can use karma as your tool here. Now let's begin. This is deck number 1. This is deck number 2. This is deck number 3. This is deck number 4. Which one calls to you? It could be one, or it could be multiple. You could also listen to all 4 readings and receive any resonant messages from all of them. So just take a moment. When you're ready, use the timestamps below to jump to the reading of your choice. Hello, those of you who chose deck number 1. Calling in your angels and your guides. What are the messages for those who chose deck number 1? The Hermit, the Ace of Discs, wow, the Emperor, Queen of Wands, Justice in reverse, oh wow, and the Fool. This is a powerful one, group number 1. Many of you are in a position right now where you're almost singling yourself out or isolating yourself, really feeling strength in solitude. There's something about being with yourself, going deep into yourself, that's revealing how strong you actually are, how passionately you will fight for what's right. I'm really hearing that, fight for what's right. Where there is injustice, I see you stepping in and stopping it in its tracks, whether it's on a scale that's in your job or your family or within your closest personal circles. There's also something about doing this that has singled you out in a way. It's like you're revolutionary in the way that you have become a defender, whether it's a defender of yourself or someone else or an ideal or a value. But it's been isolating. It's made you become more self-reflective. It's made you look deeper at yourself, and it's also made you really conscious of the ways in which you are different and special and unique. In a way, it's empowering, that solitude, but maybe for some of you it's also been lonely. It's also very linked to this anger, this righteous anger that we see in the Queen of Wands. And that righteous anger, you may be seeing a side of yourself that you haven't really seen before. And so that is making you take a really deep look at yourself deep in yourself and ask yourself, where is that coming from? Maybe it's doing good, but it's almost making me feel like I'm a stranger to myself. Where is this voice coming from? Where are these feelings coming from? What's clear is that this fight that you are fighting, this good fight, you feel alone in it, or you feel like it's a job, a solo job, a job just for you. Maybe it's on behalf of yourself that you're fighting. Maybe it's standing up for things that, maybe it's standing up to heal certain things that have come out of your self-reflection and isolation. This kind of strength or anger is coming from a lot of inner work that's been revealed, and now you are emerging as this queen after this time of solitude and reflection and self-expansion. What I'm seeing, pile 1, is that you have expanded so broadly that you've become more powerful than you ever imagined you could be. You are this Queen of Wands. You do have fire inside you. And maybe up until this point you haven't witnessed that fire, but it's because you didn't really have the space to witness it before. You didn't have the tools for self-reflection to really see this side of yourself. And now you've unleashed it. Now what you're facing now, your greatest obstacle, the Ace of Discs, and it's paired with Justice in reverse. This means different things for some of you, different members of the cluster, so definitely listen up and listen through. For some of you, what you are facing with this new Queen of Wands, this new righteous anger, what you are directing that towards is some new opportunity, some new beginning that doesn't feel fair. It could be unfair to others. Maybe it's an opportunity for you, but it's unfair to others. Or it could be an opportunity for someone else, and it's not fair to you. But despite it being exciting, despite it being new, there's something that feels icky about it. There's something that feels unjust, and it doesn't feel like there is a wrong being righted here. It feels, I'm hearing that it's fake, or it's almost like a power play, or some sort of like virtue signaling that actually at its core is very not virtuous. It's very rotten. It's actually quite corrupt. Now, others of you, what I'm seeing is that there is a new opportunity that is exciting. It is good. It is good at its core. There's new money, new career, new promise. Something really wonderful, something tangible and new and exciting for you to experience in the world. And it's being presented to you at this moment, or it's about to be presented to you. But you have feelings about it that suggest that it doesn't feel right. That for some reason you don't feel like the opportunity is right. It feels like something is wrong. And it could be just because you are being whisked away, whisked out of your time of solitude that you've had. You're being whisked out of this comfort zone that you've created. And it could be that it only feels wrong, not because there is something actually wrong, but because it feels different to you. Others of you, the opportunity looks very good on paper, but you know that there's something wrong about it, or something that feels wrong, and it might be important that you listen to it right now. It could also be that there's something about this opportunity that feels like you're cheating, or it feels like someone else is cheating the system, and what's in question is whether even that is a legitimate concern. I'm seeing that there's an element of imposter syndrome for some of you with this new opportunity. Some of you are finding yourself guilty in the face of this new adventure, like you don't deserve it. You are not worthy of it. This is unjust. This opportunity is not just. It's not earned. But that is more so coming from you than from any external, objective arbiter of truth. What's important here is that you give yourself a chance. Now, the advice is the Emperor and the Fool. I can't get over how many major arcana cards are in this spread. The Emperor and the Fool. So how do you move through this new opportunity? How do you move out of your shell that maybe you've been in, this shell of righteous anger, into this place where you're receiving something new, you're leaving that shell, and you're also feeling like you can get to a place where you feel like you deserve this, or you can see through any injustice that there actually is. The Emperor and the Fool. This is about taking a leap of faith on the system that you are being invited into. This is about having faith that actually this system will take care of you, and that there is logic and rationale to it, and that if you got this far, it must be for good reason, not by accident, not by some cheating of the system, but actually you've truly earned it. You've earned it in a really righteous way, and it might require you to have some faith in that system, even if it feels contrary to what you feel. We have this new beginning, and the advice is to say yes to that new beginning, but to do so in a way that is very by the book, by the rules, following the logical order of things. You don't have to step outside or go your own way or figure out some new creative workaround, but instead you can say yes to exactly what's being presented to you and trust that there's rationale and logic in it, and also instill rationale and logic into the process itself. I'm also seeing that this is a kind of re-entering for you into society, a re-entering from this place of solitude, being on your own, being your own ruler, and now seeing how you fit into a greater system. That could be this new opportunity that feels scary to you, the one that you see as an obstacle because you have huge issues with the system, or you have issues with community, the way that you fit as a puzzle piece in some bigger puzzle. And that's beautiful. That's the idealist in you, the one that is really fighting for this righteous on behalf of, or with this righteous anger on behalf of people who can't fight for themselves, or people who have been hurt or harmed in some way. But I think the message here, pile one, is that you don't need to continue isolating yourself to the point that you're completely out of touch with community, that you're out of touch with the system. You can change the system from the inside. You can continue this work that you've been doing and still engage with the system. You don't have to count yourself outside of it, Because if you do that, then you're not going to ever have the kind of effect of positive change that you actually want to have. It's like you need to be inside it to actually change it. It needs to be a part of you, and you need to identify it in some way to actually change it, because we only have power to change ourselves, what is in us. So if you reject this system, if you reject these structures or this part of society, this structure of society, what you're saying is that that's not in me. I'm not a part of that, and that's not a part of me. And you can't really change anything that's outside of yourself. It all happens through resonance, understanding that that is me and I am that. There's also a message here. There's an interesting connection between injustice being in reverse and the Emperor being upright. This is about having trust, having faith in a system, being a just system, being lawful. So this could be that this injustice, whether it's perceived or it's real, is not yours to solve. It's something that belongs to powers that are bigger than you. And you can be a part of that power, but it's not all on your shoulders. You can entrust that to a system greater than yourself to take care of it, to make sure that justice is served, even if there really is an unjust situation going on. Thank you, Pile 1. I hope this was helpful. Hello, deck number 2. Welcome to your reading. I'm calling in your angels and your guides. What are the messages for those who chose deck number 2? Pile number 2. Okay, pile 2, so we have the Queen of Discs in reverse, the Six of Discs, the Princess of Swords, Justice, Knight of Wands, and the Two of Cups in reverse. Okay, pile 2, so I'm seeing with the Queen of Discs in reverse that there's someone in this reading, whether it's you or someone else, someone in your life, who maybe is withholding their nurturing or their protection or their kindness. Maybe they are not tending to certain emotional or physical needs. It could be the physical, emotional needs of themselves. They're avoiding self-care, or they're having major issues with self-love. They're unable to really exercise gentleness towards themselves or someone that they care about. And it's very important with the Queen of Discs to use emotional and physical need meeting as a way to build a safe world around oneself, or around a relationship, or around a mentee or a child. So the fact that this is in reverse tells me that someone here is having a lot of trouble accessing that kind of love and care. They're having trouble meeting certain emotional, physical needs, whether that's for themselves or someone else. And it could be because they don't believe they deserve it. They don't believe they themselves deserve it, or they don't believe that someone else deserves it. It's like they're holding a grudge against someone that they can't forgive, or they're holding a grudge against themselves, telling themselves they should be this way, should be that way. Really getting caught up in past mistakes or failures and using those, attaching to those in a way that really limits their ability to feel safe and secure and supported in the present moment. Others of you, this isn't geared towards the self, it could be, what I'm hearing is like withholding something because they don't deserve it, giving someone something that they deserve, giving someone something negative that you feel they deserve. It could be a strained relationship where you're unable to have your emotional needs met by this person, so you don't really take the time to attempt to meet their needs anymore because you just don't feel like it's right. You don't feel like it's fair between the two of you. Now, some of you, the balance that isn't fair, the relationship that is unfair, is the relationship that you have with yourself. That's unfair. It could be the way that you talk to yourself, the way you talk to your truest, deepest self. Maybe it's your inner child who needs that kind of self-love and nurturing and support to feel safe. There's something unfair in the balance of that relationship inside yourself. Now, for others of you, it could be that you're actually in a state where you are trying to make right your relationship with yourself. You're actually trying to make right your self-care, your self-love, or you're trying to make right providing love and care towards someone else. Maybe you've been withholding that, and now you're seeing the error of your ways, or you're trying to make something right. I'm hearing some of you are trying to be the bigger person and give that person what they need, but it's very hard. Now, the big obstacle to the space that you find yourself in right now is this 6 of discs, and it's paired with the Knight of Wands, both in reverse. So what I was saying about something's unequal, something's unfair, this is just affirming that. The 6 of discs is all about giving and receiving, really having balanced power dynamics in a relationship, knowing what is appropriate to receive and what's appropriate to give. And sometimes we find ourselves giving far more than we should, and other times giving not enough. Same goes with receiving. We're receiving, but actually it's not good for us to receive that much. We need to actually be receiving less. There's an imbalance. Oftentimes imbalanced relationships in this way are incredibly symbiotic, though. They become comfortable, and it could be that what's hard to correct about this relationship, what makes it hard to correct this relationship, is how familiar we've become with this power dynamic, how we've internalized the inequality, the unfairness. We've internalized the imbalance. We're used to the imbalance. So we're conditioned to just recreate that imbalance over and over again with our daily patterns and our daily way of thinking and our daily way of behaving. What I'm seeing is that it actually is leading to compulsive action that isn't very much aligned with your highest intentions or your highest emotional intelligence. Knight of Wands in reverse is compulsive, reactive action, and it's not well thought out. It's coming from a place of feeling of fire. but it's not necessarily what we intend or what we genuinely believe is best for us. If this wasn't resonant, the Six of Discs being about a relationship power dynamics, it also could just symbolize going through a time of feast or famine, imbalance in the resources that you have available to you, and how quickly those things can change. And likewise, Knight of Wands in reverse could signify compulsion in trying to right that balance between feast or famine. It could be that going through a time of famine is negatively impacting this Queen of Discs. So the inability to provide for someone or provide for yourself, the inability to meet your own emotional or physical needs or meet someone else's emotional and physical needs, is because there is this period of famine that is causing you to act more out of compulsion than out of what is right. Now what I'm seeing is the advice with the Princess of Swords and the Two of Cups in reverse. First, the Princess of Swords highlights the tension between freedom and groundedness. Being able to actually enact the ideas that we have, make the ideas that we have real. And it's hard to do that sometimes because it takes freedom and wandering and exploration to really come up with those ideas, but then it takes groundedness and stability to actually enact them. So bridging that gap sometimes can be really difficult. Now when we apply this to the Two of Cups, which is in reverse, this makes me think that this tension between freedom and groundedness is about accepting and embracing differences, the unity of certain elements in your life, balance, wholeness. And of course that can be in the realm of companionship, partnership, friendship. It's about different parts working together and finding intimacy in those differences, using those differences as portals to becoming more intimate, to understanding someone better, whether this is a loved one or it's you, or it's your truest self. I'm seeing with the Princess of Swords and the Two of Cups a lot of ideas around healing this disconnection. Two of Cups in reverse, a disconnection, focusing too much on difference rather than unity, or allowing differences to make you feel disconnected rather than seeing the strength in differences, the way that differences can actually lead to balance and wholeness. And what needs to happen in order to turn this into connection, whether it's connection with someone else or it's connection with yourself, it's honoring your own emotional needs and physical needs. What needs to happen is a bridging between ideas and action. Actually grounding your ideas in real concrete action. Otherwise, the ideas and the action get further and further apart, and it's harder to make contact with those. The freedom then becomes only in our heads and never really sees itself in grounding and never sees itself planted. And if the freedom is only in our minds and we're not actually living that out, we're not actually doing things with those ideas, then is it even real to begin with? I'm also hearing for some of you, because this highlights the gap, the tension between freedom and groundedness with the Princess of Swords. Some of you, this is about seeing, being committed to love, whether it's love of someone else or love of yourself, seeing as that commitment as being the opposite of freedom, when, like, as if somehow doing that is going to limit you in some way, or make you smaller, or make you less of who you are, when in fact it actually is the same thing. It's that duality. They need each other, and this could be a shifting of your thinking into seeing that kind of love or self-love, that care, self-care, and that deeper understanding of intimacy and commitment to that intimacy as a portal to your freedom. I hope this was helpful, Pile 2. Hello everyone who chose deck number 3. I'm gonna call in your guides and angels. Six of Cups, the Hanged Man, the Teacher, Seven of Wands in reverse, Seven of Cups, Princess of Swords, Okay, Pile 3, this is really a beautiful message that I'm seeing for you. Six of Cups, and it's paired with the Seven of Wands in reverse. Many of you are finding yourself resolving some sort of childhood trauma, something in your past that you've been holding on to and has largely defined you up until this point. Maybe it's a pattern, something that stems back from childhood. Maybe it's an actual event that was traumatic. Maybe it was a situation. Maybe it was a situation with a person, and that person, the relationship, that felt like there was something still unresolved there. Something that kept you from being able to forgive and let go. I think for many of you, this was something that you felt unable to stand up for yourself about, something that made you unable to advocate for yourself or advocate on behalf of someone else. And it, for whatever reason, that experience in childhood has actually limited your ability to advocate for yourself, stand your ground, or speak up on behalf of others now, all in your adult life. So I think for others of you, you are still in the midst of trying to reverse this. You are dealing with this trauma that's coming up from childhood right now, and it's coming up to be healed. You're being triggered in some way so that it can be healed, but you're finding yourself in a state of being walked over, unable to stand your ground, fight for what you want, fight for yourself, or fight for what's right. So whether you're on the other side of this or you're in the midst of it, this is a pretty difficult thing to be facing, but it's so important that you face it. Now what's happening is you're in a place, we have the Hanged Man and the Seven of Cups. Part of the reason why it's hard to overcome this is because you feel like you're waiting for the exact right time. Now what's standing in your way from completely leaving this in the past, completely forgiving it, finally actually standing your ground as you deserve to, or even moving past this situation. Let's say you have actually resolved this childhood trauma, but you're still having some trouble speaking up about it, or it still feels like even though it's resolved, you're frozen in time now that you've resolved it. It's like there's too many possibilities and you don't know how to move forward after this because you don't know who you are without it. So whether you're in it or it's after it, you find yourself in this waiting period, waiting for the right time to strike, to take your next steps. And what's happening is that you're kind of drowning in all of the emotional hypotheticals of what could be all of your options. And the thing is that resolving this, whether you're in the midst of resolving it or you're on the other side of resolving it, it will land you in a place outside the limits of your understanding up until this point. The outermost limits of your understanding have been reached, which means you're on the cusp of a new reality, but you have to wait for that reality to present itself. Or you need to wait until the swirling emotions inside you pause, and the ones that are flights of fancy dissolve, and what's real is left, and that's what gives you the direction you need to move forward. You're in an incubation period, having come out of this, or this is going to drop you off into an incubation period, a period of feeling like, well, now what? I did this. I resolved this. Now what? Who am I without that? We often don't imagine that healing is going to turn our life around, but real healing does exactly that. Real healing can be a huge sacrifice. It can hold us by our foot. It can dangle us upside down. It can force us to see things from 180 degree difference. It makes our entire world look different because the world that we're used to and comfortable in is one of dis-ease. So what does a world of ease look like to you? How do you experience that? It's going to feel uncomfortable, even if it's what is right. Now, you can't force yourself out of this incubation time, this time where you're reacclimating to your life, to what your new life is. You fought very hard to get to this place. It's important not to expect instant rewards or instant clarity coming out of this, because this is something that took up years and years. It took up so much energy for you. It's like you've been off kilter for so long, and now you remove that thing that's been keeping you out of balance, and your body's just going like this. And it's going to keep doing that, and it's holding you, suspending you in this state of waiting, of going, what's real now? My reality is just, it's shaking, but little by little, it will move less and less until it finds its set point, until it settles. And you want to wait for the dust to settle to really understand where you are. You can't judge yourself based on where you are as soon as you come out of this, because you swung in the other direction. When you're correcting an imbalance, things will continue to be imbalanced for a while before they finally find balance. It doesn't just go like this. So if you find yourself in this waiting period, don't see it as the obstacle. Don't be afraid of it. It's inevitable, and it's an important part of your healing, and you're going to see your mind and your heart going wild in this time, truly feeling like anything is possible and feeling overwhelmed by those possibilities, feeling overwhelmed by your imagination to the point that it might be paralyzing. Trust that this is the rebalancing of your feelings and of your mind as well. Those things are off kilter too. Those things need to balance out. They need time to find their set point and settle. Don't judge yourself. Don't judge yourself by the extremes that you feel or imagine or think during this time. It is a recalibrating of your body and of your existence. Now the advice is the teacher, which is the Hierophant in traditional tarot decks, and the Princess of Swords. So what I'm seeing is someone here who is very perceptive, courageous, but also careful, also extremely thoughtful. They put a great deal of thought into everything that they do. They're very open-minded. It's not open-mindedness to the point of recklessness, but rather it's thoughtful open-mindedness. It's considering new ideas and new potentials that have no limits, truly no limits. But understanding the importance of grounding those ideas, that those ideas are meaningless without the element of earth, without the element of grounding. Pages. Now the princess is the page in traditional tarot decks, so this is also very much childlike energy. You know, it's interesting that this is here, which suggests childhood trauma or issues or attachments that stem back to childhood, and then we have a childlike representation here in the deck. I see this as you learning from your inner child, from the thoughts and beliefs and reflections of your inner child. The advice here is to engage with that version of yourself intellectually, become actually intellectually curious about that past version of you. That person. Healing doesn't banish that version of you from your life. They will always be a part of you. They are always inside of you. So it's really important when you heal things to also make peace with that version, because that version is that's an ongoing relationship forever. And there's a lot left to learn from that. Even if you're not attached to the event that happened or the trauma, even if you're able to move past that, rise above it, choose contrary action and change things, there's still conversations to be had with that version of you, with that inner child. You can also become extremely observant about yourself, curious about yourself, when building a new foundation in place of these old systems that you've been operating by. I'm seeing that with the Princess of Swords, and that is something that will actually craft your new inner doctrines more consciously. I also see you on a literal level, this leading to some sort of new path in life where you want to pursue education in something new. This healing might open up a door for you that makes you curious to learn a new skill, pursue a new career, educate yourself in a way, really learn something different. And I see you embarking on that journey, again, with courage first and foremost, but also a great deal of thought. So put a lot of thought into what it is you want to be learning, if it is some sort of formal education, if that's how this is going to translate itself, or if this is just learning about you, learning about the inner child that went through all this, and deepening your self-understanding so that you can continue to grow beyond the outer limits of your understanding over and over again. That's what we're here to do. I hope this was helpful, Pile 3. Hello, Pile 4 Constellation. Those of you who chose Pile 4 or deck number 4, I'm going to take a moment and call in your guides, call in your angels. What are the messages for Pile 4? Devil in reverse. Wow. The Ace of Cups. The Six of Wands in reverse. And the King of Wands. And the King of Wands in reverse. Okay, pile 4. Wow, this is powerful. I'm already getting so many downloads. So we have the Temperance card to begin, and it's paired with the Ace of Cups, which is such a beautiful message. A lot of you are finding integration of different parts of yourself, parts of yourself that may feel incongruent. You know, the parts of yourself that you look at and you go, how am I this contradiction? How am I this walking contradiction? And the truth is you're not. You are God. And God is everything. God is light and dark. God is hot and cold. God is everything and its opposite. God is duality. And substitute the word God for whatever it is you want. The force that unites us all, spirit, the universe, the unifying power of love. You are duality too, and this is the integration of those different parts of yourself, all through something or someone that you are falling in love with. You're experiencing, I'm seeing, a kind of integration of the self, a balancing of these different parts of yourself in such a beautiful way that feels truly divine, where you aren't sacrificing one thing for another or trying to resolve the contradiction, trying to get rid of the shadow self for the sake of your light self, but rather holding space for all of it and accepting all of it and seeing how all of it is the truth. You are coming to this kind of awareness all through a new love, whether that's a new love with someone else or it's a passion. I'm seeing some of you fall in love with a project, with a job, with a hobby, and also with a person. And it could be romantic, but it could also be a friendship. Some of you are meeting a really true friend, maybe the first true friend that you've ever had. They put other friends to shame, or a true friend in your recent adult life. You know, maybe you haven't been able to connect with anyone in that way in recent years, and now you really are. This Ace of Cups is a complete rebirth of your heart, a re-energizing of your heart. It's a filling of your cup. It's something that is so fulfilling. I also see you, to swap this, some of you are feeling this fulfillment. You're feeling this dopamine rush. You're feeling like you're in love with life and in love with yourself, in love with the contradictions that you are, in love with the duality, and you're embracing everything that you're seeing. And not only are you embracing, accepting it, but you're actually loving it. Something is happening to you now that is giving you the opportunity to do this. It's inviting you to do this. Now, what is threatening to this, or what makes this harder, is the fact that the Five of Wands is here, which is the card of disruption. It's a card of revolution, and revolution that often comes with conflict, right? There is no revolution that comes without conflict. it's easy for us sometimes to really focus on the conflict part of that, focus on the fighting, the shouting, the things that feel aggressive, that we take personally, while ignoring the fact that those are the ingredients for revolution always. It is conflict that leads us to peace sometimes. And conflict can be noble. It doesn't have to be violent. It doesn't have to be unjust. Conflict in and of itself isn't bad, but we are trained and conditioned really to fear conflict, to be a people pleaser, to not rock the boat, when in fact conflict is often a portal to things that we dream about, things that we say we value. And it's often a necessary step to make on that path to our destination. But because we shy away from it so much, avoiding conflict is often the reason we end up avoiding that destination that we say is so important to us, the destination we say we're headed to. So I see some kind of disruption happening that is feels like a real loss to you. There is a lot of voices that are unhappy or critical, different people offering different solutions, different people lashing out, and a lot of disagreement. And it could be about something, a job that wasn't well done, could be about a loss, about a failure. And it's like you are maintaining this kind of love and acceptance of duality in the face of that failure, and that's what makes it really so miraculous, the work that you're doing, and also so challenging. But it could also be that the conflict that is happening isn't actually the kind of conflict that is useful. Or what I'm hearing is that there's a pressure on it to make it be victorious, to make it lead to some kind of validation or reward, or success. But the thing is that it might not lead to that. It still could be very useful, but it might actually lead to something that on the surface feels like failure, or on the surface feels like loss. When in fact, sometimes failure and loss are exactly the things that we need to push us further along, push us to the next thing, push us closer to the destination that we actually want. So this obstacle might appear to be somewhat confusing in its nature and somewhat misleading. Now, to circle back, I was saying that the Five of Wands could just be conflict for the sake of conflict. It isn't actually we see this portrayed as a wheel, and it's a fire. It's like a fire. It's just broken loose and it's uncontrollable. And there's also this element of repetition and cycling. It's almost like seeing conflict as a season as opposed to a means to an end. Sometimes seasons exist to rebalance an ecosystem, or certain elements of weather in a season exist to rebalance an ecosystem. It could be that this conflict is needed to rebalance a certain ecosystem, either in your work environment or your family or your friends or your relationship. And that's the thing that may on the surface feel like a loss. It may feel like the opposite of triumph to you. But I think what's important to keep in mind is that the ego's definition of triumph is very different from your higher self's definition of triumph. The ego's definition of victory doesn't match your higher self's definition of victory. So don't judge this too quickly, because you may be judging from your ego mind rather than the deepest part of your knowing. The advice here is incredible. We have the Devil in reverse, and it's paired with the King of Wands in reverse. What I'm seeing is that some of you need to confront a part of your shadow side, question your own beliefs and assumptions about yourself, and overcome maybe shame that you're carrying around regarding your ability to be victorious, regarding your ability to quiet conflict or reach peaceful resolutions or solutions. Sometimes those solutions or resolutions aren't really solutions. They're not really sustainable solutions. Really, they're just a silencing. And it's important to distinguish the difference between those. Others of you, this is about changing your relationship with how you see yourself as a leader. Some people have this kind of innate, honorable leadership, the ability to lead people by this kind of transformative, inspiring fire that they have, and passion. It's a passion in their spirit, in their soul, in their beliefs, and it's in reverse here, which tells me that this is something maybe that you don't identify with, and that's something that needs to be reassessed, because you may be the leader that you don't think that you are. Now, another interpretation would be that there is someone in your life who is not this way. Another person who you see at the very least as not exhibiting this kind of King of Wands energy, and what's needed is a reassessment of your judgment of them, and that there's something, somehow they are that key to healing this conflict with others, conflict with yourself, or conflict with a new love. Maybe it is that love. Maybe it's how you're seeing that love in that relationship. Now, others of you, if that wasn't resonant, for some of you the message is actually to accept the opposite. It is to, if you have shame over not being this kind of leader, someone who leads with this transformative power to just inspire throngs of people, I see the Devil in reverse as being a relinquishing of shame around not being this. Maybe you have carried shame around this, and that is what is feeding into this conflict and these feelings of failure, interpretation of this conflict of failure. And that's what's challenging, this acceptance of everything that you are, and falling in love with everything that you are, and falling in love with the light and dark in life. This could be about really accepting you for who you are, and understanding that we all play different roles, and that the people who feel opposite of us, those people are us. We're all part of one greater thing, so we don't have to feel shame about playing the role that we are. Instead, if we're able to really embrace who we are and accept who we are, that's when we work beautifully and harmoniously with the people who are different. So this could be about recognizing that this King of Wands isn't who you are, and that is okay. You may be a different kind of king, still a leader, but a different kind of king. And relinquish, get rid of, let go of the shame that you have around admitting what you are and what you are not. There is nothing shameful about being your authentic self. There is nothing shameful about being who you really are. And I'm not talking about who your ego really is. I'm talking about you, the deepest part of yourself, the part of yourself that is source energy, pure source energy. You know the difference. I hope this was helpful, Pile 4. Thank you all for joining me for this reading. I'm grateful that you are part of the Starchaeology Tarot constellation. If you feel called to, please comment below and share, open up. feels so good to connect with you guys. And I love you very much. I'm rooting for you as always.